talking about circles, circles have their own specific vocabulary. It's almost like if you've got a chest of drawers, mathematical drawers, circles have got their own drawer, because the words, the vocabulary that we use with circles are unique to circles. And it's really, really interesting and really amazing. For example, if I said to you, calculate the perimeter of a rectangle, the perimeter is the distance all the way around the outside of the rectangle. But when we are talking about circles, the perimeter of a circle is called the circumference. And that's what I mean by circles have their own unique vocabulary. And throughout the show today, I'm going to be using vocabulary that is specific to circles. So you get to understand why we use specific vocabulary with circles and what they mean. So you've drawn your radius. You can measure the line of your radius if you want to. I'm just going to estimate that my radius is 5 centimeters long. If you've got a ruler, you can measure with your ruler and you can get the exact measurement of your radius. Now, can you draw another line? And this line, it goes from one part of the circumference. It must pass through the center of the circle, and it goes right across the circle to the other side of the circumference. But that line must pass through the center. It must pass through the center. That line is what we call the diameter. So the diameter on a circle extends from one part of the circumference. It must pass through the center, and it goes right across the circle to the other side. The amazing thing about that line is it is called a diameter. And a diameter on any circle splits that circle into two parts. And those parts are called semicircles. Those two parts are half of a circle. And when you draw your diameter on any circle, that is what the diameter does. It divides, it splits your circle into two halves, and those are called semicircles. Once again, this is the amazement of mathematics. How can one line be so important? Well, it is. Okay, so you've now got your diameter, that long line that goes across the circle, but it must pass through the center. And then you've got your radius. The circumference is the distance all the way around your circle. It's like the perimeter, but in maths, when we're talking about circles, we use the word circumference. And the word circumference comes from the Latin. Latin is an old language, but a lot of our science words, most of our science words come from Latin. A lot of words that we use in English have got their roots in Latin. When you circumnavigate the world, it means you go around the world. Somebody who circumnavigates the world goes all the way around the world. 196 countries, okay? That's how many countries we've got in the world. So when you circumnavigate the world, you go all the way around the world. The word circum, C-I-R-C-U-M, means to go around. You've got the other part of the word circumference. That comes from the Latin ferre, which means to carry on going around. So the word circumference means to carry on going around, and that is where you get the word circle from. So the circumference is the distance all the way around a circle. Okay? The circumference is the distance all the way around a circle. So we've got diameter, we've got radius, we've got circumference. The tangent is a straight line that touches the circumference in any direction. It just touches the circumference, and it is a straight line. So on your circles, you can just draw a straight line that just touches the circumference. I've got a straight line. My one is vertical. Yours could be horizontal. It could be diagonal, but it just touches the circumference of a circle. And as we get more into circles, you will understand more how to use the tangent and the significance of a tangent. So now you've got tangent, diameter, radius, and circumference. The next word that I want to use is a chord. C-H-O-R-D. The chord, when you draw a chord, both ends of the chord must touch the circumference. The chord does not pass through the center. The chord is a straight line where both end points, that means both ends of that line, they touch the circumference. So you imagine you've got your circle, you've got your diameter, you've got your radius, and all you have got now is another straight line inside of the circle. One end touches one part of the circle, the circumference, and the other end touches the other part of the circumference. But that chord does not pass through the center. The diameter is what we call the longest chord, but that chord must only pass through the center. Every other line that does not pass through the center, but both endpoints touch the circumference, is called a chord. Now we've got another word, which is a sector. A sector is a bit like a slice of pizza, but in mathematics, we don't use the word slice, we use the word sector. Okay, so the sector is a part of the circle. Then we've got the arc, A-R-C, and the arc is a part of the circumference. Any part of the circumference is a fraction of the circumference, and it can be anywhere. So what have you learned? The words. You know tangent, you know diameter, you know radius, you know circumference, you know chord, C-H-O-R-D, not C-O-R-D, C-H-O-R-D. You know sector, and you know arc, A-R-C. These are the most important parts on a circle. You have got other parts like a secant, but I don't want to go into that now because then I'm bombarding you with vocabulary and terms. But the words that I've given you, these are the most common, popular, and well-used words when we are talking about circles. Tangent, diameter, radius, circumference, chord, sector, and arc, A-R-C. The relationship between the radius and the diameter on any circle is your radius is always half the length of your diameter. The radius is always half the length of your diameter, or your diameter is always double the length of your radius. Let me say it again. The radius, that's the short line that goes from the center of the circle to the circumference, is always half the length of your diameter. And your diameter is always double the length of your radius. So for example, if your diameter was 10 centimeters long, then your radius would have to be 5 centimeters. If your radius is 7 centimeters long, then your diameter would have to be 14 centimeters long. That's the relationship between the radius and your diameter. Now, the next relationship is one of my favorite ones. There is a relationship between your diameter and the circumference of your circle. And I'm going to teach it on the radio because it's really exciting. Imagine you've got your diameter and you cut a piece of string to fit exact length of that diameter. So you've got your circle, you've got your diameter, and your diameter is that straight line that extends from one part of the circumference. It must pass through the center and it goes right across to the other side of the circumference. Get a piece of string and cut that piece of string to match the exact length of your diameter. Now, that diameter length that you've got, that piece of string, which is the length of your diameter, if you trace it around the outside of your circle, if you trace that piece of string around the circumference, that piece of string, which is your diameter, can only fit around the circumference 3 and a little bit times. That diameter length of string can only fit around the circumference 3 and a little bit times. 3 and a little bit is very significant in mathematics because 3 and a little bit as a decimal number is 3.14. 0.14 is a little bit of a whole. 3.14 is what we know as pi. Pi, represented as a symbol, is like 2 vertical lines, and you've got a nice curved line that connects the 2 on top. Pi as a fraction is 22 over 7. 22 divided by 7. 22 over 7 is what we call an improper fraction. When we are converting an improper fraction into a mixed number or into a decimal, it becomes 3.14. And 3.14 is pi. And pi never, ever changes. When I was younger, pi was 3.14. When Dean was younger, pi was 3.14. When anyone was younger, pi was and is and will always be 3.14. And you can only fit a diameter length around the circumference of any circle 3.14 times. So, to calculate the circumference of any circle, now you know what to do. Because all you do is you multiply pi, which is 3.14, by whatever your diameter is. And that will give you your circumference. Isn't maths amazing? How can I make maths so easy and simple on the radio? I've given you a mental picture of what to do. And this is why the math show is so important. So you know how to calculate the circumference of any circle. You know the relationship between the radius and the diameter, and now you know the relationship between the diameter and the circumference. What have we learned so far? We've learned the parts of a circle: tangent, diameter, radius, circumference, chord, sector, arc. I've explained to you that circles have their own unique vocabulary in mathematics. For example, if I said to work out, to calculate the perimeter of a rectangle, that means you would measure all the way around the outside of the rectangle. But when we're talking about the perimeter of a circle, we use the word circumference. And that is what I mean by maths and circles are so special and so important. Wow. I'm going to go on to the chord, because the chord is also really special in a circle. Okay. You've got your chord, and your chord is a straight line, and both ends of that straight line must touch the circumference. But with the chord, it does not pass through the center. The only chord that is unique and passes through the center is the diameter. So you've got your chord. Your chord is a straight line where both end points of that straight line touch either side of the circumference. Now, if you draw a straight line from the center of the circle, and that straight line is perpendicular to the chord, your chord, that line will bisect the chord. What we mean by bisect in mathematics means to divide, to split something into two equal parts. Let me say it again. You've got your chord, and your chord is a straight line, and the end points, the two end points of your straight line, they both touch the circumference. The chord does not pass through the center. The only chord that passes through the center is called a diameter. So you've got your chord. Now draw a straight line from the center of the circle that is perpendicular to your chord. By perpendicular, we mean where that straight line from the center of the circle, where that straight line touches the chord, wherever that straight line touches the chord so that it is perpendicular to the chord, your chord line will automatically be bisected. And that means the chord will be split into two equal parts. This is the part of mathematics that is not always taught in the classroom. But I know that it is such an important part of learning and understanding and appreciating circles. The chord, can you imagine it? The diameter is another chord, but the diameter is unique because that chord does pass through the center. So it's got its own unique name. But the other straight lines that do not pass through the center are called chords. And both endpoints of a chord must touch the circumference. This is what makes the math show unique. We are teaching you. We are showing you. And when I say we, yes, I might be in the hot chair talking, but Dean is teaching you and showing you through the Mr. Numbervator Sovereign Comics series. We are teaching maths through the comic. So even though Dean is not in the chair, he's still teaching you. And what we're doing is we're making maths come alive. We are showing you how exciting and how relevant and how meaningful maths is in the real world, in your everyday life. Because every day you deal with circles. A clock face is a circle. When you go shopping, most of the coins that you use are circles. 5p, 10p, £2 coin, £1 coin, they're all circles. So you use them. You see circles everywhere in our environment. What sense do you make of circles when you look at them? I am giving you that meaning behind circles. So, I've explained that circles have their own unique vocabulary. We've spoken about the different parts of a circle. We've spoken about the relationship between the diameter and the radius, the relationship between the diameter and the circumference. You know about pi as a Greek letter of the alphabet, the symbol. Pi as a numerical number is 3.14. As a fraction, pi is 22/7. 22/7 is what we call an irregular fraction because the numerator is bigger, heavier than the denominator. And then I've just explained to you about the chord and where you draw a straight line that is perpendicular to that chord. And remember, where two straight perpendicular lines meet, a right angle is formed. So when you draw that straight line from the center and it is perpendicular to the chord, that chord will be bisected by that straight line. And when you bisect the line, it means you split that line into two equal parts. Bi means two. Bicentenary means two lots of 100 years. That's where the word bi comes from. It means two. Okay, I've given you so much so far, okay? But I did say that circles are amazing. They are unique. They are a unique shape. We can draw a circle using a compass. We can draw around a plate. We can draw around anything that is round. Even in the studio, our microphones are standing up on a stand, and the base of the stand is circular. It is round. So I could draw around the base of my microphone. And guess what? The tall piece that extends up to the microphone that I can speak through is in the center of the circle. This is what I mean by the power and how amazing mathematics is. After our short ad break, I'm going to be talking about the arc length. I'm going to be talking about how to calculate the area of a circle. We know how to calculate the circumference of a circle, but I'm going to go over it again. And then we're going to be talking about how we can calculate the area of a sector. So we're going to learn how to calculate the arc length, area of a circle, circumference of a circle, and the area of a sector. Don't go too far. Get a glass of water, go and use the lavatory, get a piece of fruit, get a biscuit, but come back in precisely 2 minutes. See you on the other side.
Go to www.sovereigncomicsuk and get your latest issue of Mr. Numbervator's Maths comic book series today. You are now tuned into the Mr. Numbervator show every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station. Let's get mathematical.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Math Show with me, Mr. Numbervator, on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station, where we believe in keeping the community connected. The community is not just our local environment. The community extends worldwide, and we are keeping you connected through mathematics. Blaze on a Saturday keeps you connected through her interviews. Charles, every other Saturday, keeps you connected through the health show. We've got different DJs, different presenters who keep you connected through music. And this is the power and this is the legacy of Chalk Hill Community Radio Station. So, welcome back to part 2 with me, Mr. Numbervator, on Chalk Hill Community Radio Station. And it's not just me, it's Dean. And Dean is the person, Dean is the maestro. That means Dean is the amazing person behind Sovereign Comics. And when you read the comics, oh my gosh, and you see what Dean has drawn, what Dean has presented, and the way Dean has engaged with you through drawings and through graphics, words cannot explain what Dean has done. It's amazing. So what I'm saying there is you must get your own comic, get your own copy of the comic. You can get it on Amazon, or you can go to the website sovereigncomics.co.uk, and everything is there. You'll be directed to the math show, you'll be directed to the comics, you'll be directed to the school support that we offer, you'll be directed to everything to do with Sovereign Comics. Okay, on with part 2 of the math show. In part 1 of the math show, we looked at circles. We looked at the unique, specific words that we associate with circles: tangent, diameter, radius, circumference, chord, sector, arc. I then explained to you that circles have got their own unique vocabulary when it comes to mathematics. For example, when you are calculating the perimeter of a shape, let's take a rectangle. When you are calculating the perimeter of a rectangle, you measure the length, the width, and then the other width. Now, in mathematics, the perimeter is called the circumference. That's the distance around the outside of a circle. And this is what I mean by its unique vocabulary. Radius, diameter, circumference, chord, C-H-O-R-D, sector, arc, tangent. These words are unique to circles. And the circle as a shape is absolutely amazing. We've looked at the relationship between the radius and the diameter. The radius is always half the length of your diameter. We looked at the relationship between the diameter and the circumference. Your diameter on any circle can only fit around the circumference 3 and a little bit times. 3 and a little bit as a number is 3.14. 3.14 in mathematics is pi. Pi as a fraction is 22 over 7. 22 over 7 is what we call an irregular fraction. Why? Because the numerator, the number at the top, is bigger, heavier than the number underneath the line, which is called the denominator. When you do 22 divided by 7, guess what decimal number you get? 3.14. That's how amazing mathematics is. We then looked at the chord and how if you draw the chord, your chord must touch both ends of your chord must touch the circumference on either side, but your chord does not pass through the center. The only chord, the only line that passes through the center is called the diameter. Okay, let's move on to actually interpreting the circle, making sense of the circle, and finding out some measurements in the circle. I want to find out the area of a circle. I want to find out how much space a circle takes up. Because remember, the space inside is bound by the circumference. So you've got your line going around. It's the space that's on the inside of your circumference. That is the area. That is the amount of space taken up. And when we are calculating the area of a circle, we measure it in centimeters squared. cm with the little 2 to the right above it. The formula, the way that we calculate the area of a circle is pi multiplied by the radius squared. So it is pi, which is 3.14, multiplied by the radius squared. For example, if I have got a circle and the length of my radius is 5 centimeters long, if I want to work out the area of my circle, I would do 3.14 multiplied by 5 squared. 5 squared is 25. So I would do 3.14 multiplied by 25. And if my memory serves me, that answer is about 78 point something. Okay, so that's rough. That's roughly, okay. I said 78 point something. Let me just work it out on the radio in front of you and see how close I was. 3.14 multiplied by 25. What did I say? The actual answer is 78.5. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Now, I'm not saying I'm the best mathematician. I can never say that. But what I can say is I am the best at what I do. I've got that confidence to say that. I am not the best mathematician. There are mathematicians out there who are way above me. They've been studying it for much longer. They've gone into greater depth much more than me. I'm working my way up there. But what I know I can say is that I'm the best at what I do. And I am continually trying to be better. I'm in the pursuit of excellence. That means I'm chasing the excellent teaching that I can give. Okay, so we have got the area of a circle, pi r squared. Now, earlier, I spoke about the circumference of a circle. And I said the circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. A circle has got the diameter in it. Your diameter is that straight line that goes from one edge of the circle across the center of the circle, across the other side, and it must pass through the center of the circle. That is the diameter. That diameter line can only fit around the circumference 3 and a little bit times. 3 and a little bit, as we now know, is 3.14. So to calculate the circumference of a circle, you would simply do 3.14 multiplied by whatever the diameter is. So let's do it. On my circle, I just said that my radius is 5 centimeters long. The radius on any circle is always half the length of the diameter. So if my radius is 5 centimeters long, my diameter must be 10 centimeters long. So to work out the circumference, I simply have to do 3.14 times 10. 3.14 multiplied by 10 is 31.4. So the circumference of my circle that has got a radius of 5 centimeters is 31.4. Isn't maths amazing? Okay, so now we know about the area of a circle, and now we know about the circumference of a circle as well. How do we calculate the area of a sector? Now, once again, I said earlier, I keep on saying it, that mathematics and circles have got their own unique vocabulary. A sector of a circle is a bit like a slice of a pizza. It's like a bit of the circle. It's like a part of the circle. So if I have got a part of the circle, if I have got a sector of the circle, I want to know how much space is taken up by the sector of the circle, the area of that sector. And there's a way of calculating the area of a sector. Okay. Someone has just sent me a message. Someone has just sent me a message about circles. I'm going to come on to it. Someone's just asked me, how do you calculate the arc length? That's going to be the next part of the show. So I'm going to finish off with the area of the sector, and then I'm going to come on to the arc length. This is how I like the math show. This is how I want you to interact with me. Because someone obviously wants to know and learn about the arc length. I'm going to come on to that shortly. Let me finish off the area of a sector. So, because I want to work out the area of a sector, I need to know what the central angle is. I need to know what the angle at the center of my circle is. That angle at the center of my circle will be a fraction of 360 degrees. Why? because there are 360 degrees in a circle. So the center angle, the central angle could be 144 degrees. And I would divide that by 360 because I'm trying to get what proportion of the whole, which is 360, is 144. And that will give me the fraction. So to work out the area of a sector, I would do the angle at the center, the central angle, divided by 360. And because we are dealing with circles, how much of that sector, what fraction of that whole sector, what is it out of a circle? We then multiply that by pi r squared. So to calculate the sector area, it is the angle at the center, the central angle, divided by 360 degrees, multiplied by pi 3.14, multiplied by the radius squared. And that will give us our answer. And I've just said, let's just say the angle at the center is 144 degrees. I'm just making it up, yeah? 144 degrees. I'm going to do 144 divided by 360 because we're trying to work out what proportion, what fraction of 360 is 144. I'm then going to multiply that by 3.14, which is pi. And if my radius is 5 centimeters, my 5 squared, which is the radius squared, is 25. I'm going to multiply that by 25, and I get an answer. I get an answer of 31.4, and that is the correct answer. Okay, so that would be the area of my sector. Once again, isn't maths amazing? 144 divided by 360 times by 3.14 times by 25, and that is my answer. So that is how you work out, that is how you calculate the area of a sector. S-E-C-T-O-R.